Mitch from Pick Dogs here with your college football preview show, part one. We're going to break it into two shows. So if you're watching this show, it's every game that has up until Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time start, including those games with a 4 p.m. Eastern time start on Saturday. So we're going to cover the Thursday game, the Friday games, and then all the earlier games on Saturday. And then tomorrow, we'll bring it on home on Aloha Friday, bring it all the way to the end. Probably a shorter show tomorrow, and there's 4 games tomorrow, so of course everyone will want to be watching the action anyway. But hello to everyone. Of course, I got Steve Monahan joining us as well. We will give everyone just a couple seconds to join us. Hopefully you guys caught my earlier show today. We had the Brewers, which was a winner. We have the Twins, which are looking pretty good, and the under in the Rangers-Red Sox game, but that Red Sox pitching staff not letting that happen. They are really, really bad. What do you expect for $185 million these days? The most overpaid, I mean, if you're a Red Sox fan, there's only one word to describe you, and that's sucker. I mean, you're paying for this crap. David Price, let's figure out exactly how much David Price made per pitch this season while we have some time to kill. This is one of my favorite games. It's like, let's see how much these guys make per pitch. So Justin Verlander, we know, makes about $10,000 a pitch. So that ball, that home run that he gets up, $10,000. But David Price takes it to a whole new level because, he doesn't even play, right? So see exactly how many pitches.
Is there a comment from a Joe Kavanaugh? They said wearing the ring still.
Yeah,
you still have a few weeks, Joe.
That's okay. So is Joe Namath from the '69 Jets. It certainly doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing. What we'll take a look at is what the Red Sox fans, this is, you got a ring, this is what you're paying for. This comes directly out of your pocket. It's not the owners paying for this. The fans are the ones that buy the tickets. The fans are the ones that pay. It's $70 to park at Fenway Park right now. $70. Okay? And this is why, because David Price threw a total, let's see, doesn't say how many pitches he threw, but he started 22 games this season, 107 innings. So we can break it down by innings. So 107 innings, and then his salary, 107. David Price salary. I know it's in the 30 range, right? 30 million. So he made 30. It was an even 30. All right.
Is it 30?
Even 30 for Price. Oh, that's the going rate for.
I even thought.
So we go over this all the time. I just can't believe I forgot it. I think it's actually even worse than that, because that's right, because that was his 2016 salary. In 2019, his base was 31 million. So 31 million. This is what David Price makes. And, of course, this is our college football preview show. We're just killing a little time before. So 107 innings at 30 million equals, I don't know. We'll just say, so 107. So about, I don't know, what is that? 300,000 an inning? Is that what that is? Or 30,000 an inning? I think it's 300,000 an inning is what that comes out to. Yeah, it's $300,000 an inning because 10 innings would be $3 million, right? So, and he makes $31 million. So it's $300,000 an inning that David Price makes, and I don't know.
That's good work if he can find it.
Why does it cost $75 to park at Fenway Park? Why does it cost $12 for a hot dog? Ask David Price. Anyways, let's get to college football action. Enough of this. We've killed some time. And we're going to do our college football preview. That's what the show is really about. I get carried away. We were just trying to kill some time. But in the meantime, we got a full slate of college football, starting with tonight's game. I've gone over this one up and down. I've given out a free pick on a video. I did it on this morning show. Steve, we got Memphis laying 10.5 at home against Navy. Of course, Memphis' top running back out for this game. The line came way down on this thing when that happened. Navy 2-0 entering. Memphis 3-0 entering. Someone's O has got to go.
That's what you said about Michael Buffer. I like the middies. 10-point spread here, 10.5. Middies not been the middies of old for the last 2 years or so. But with the injury to the Memphis back, 10 points. I'll take the Navy midshipmen on the road.
Yeah, I've been on Navy in this one. Everyone knows Darrell Henderson was one of my favorite players last year, and he's gone from Memphis. And I just think I know Memphis reloads. They have this high-powered offense, but at the same time, I think that I think Navy has a chance to win this game outright. I really do. So we go to tomorrow. We head to Blacksburg. We'll be hearing some Metallica before the game. I always love that Enter Sandman as they go into Lane Stadium. Virginia Tech laying 2.5 to the Dukies. Both teams 2-1 entering into this one. Virginia Tech has not covered the spread in any of their games this season. Duke 2-1 against the number. Of course, the one, we schedule Alabama to start the season. You give Nick Saban 8 months to prepare for you. You're probably in trouble after losing your starting quarterback. You don't have much depth to begin with. What do you think here?
I don't like Virginia Tech. Like, to your point, I just don't like Virginia Tech. I'm going to take the other team.
Yeah, I'm going with Duke as well. I just think that David Cutcliffe, one of my favorite coaches, he always does more with less. He always has, he coaches at Duke, so generally smart players at Duke, and Cutcliffe knows how to use those smart players. He makes smart plays, and against a team like Virginia Tech, I expect to see Duke be able to get it done.
I think Duke has really turned the corner in football, especially since Cutcliffe took over about 4 or 5 years ago. You can agree or not with the Daniel Jones selection by the Giants at number 6, but, he's producing NFL talent. You never thought of Duke before with the football program, but they got some good defensive players, good athletes. So, I'm going to go with Duke once again.
Yep, it's, of course, they did have Dave Brown years ago under Steve Spurrier, but
yeah, now a very long time ago.
Yeah. Giants love those Duke quarterbacks. Anyways, we head to Maryland where the Terps take on Penn State. Maryland 2-1 on the season. The Nittany Lions 3-0 entering this one. 2-1 against the number for both these teams. I love Maryland. They're super athletic. This is actually a rivalry game and two teams that hate each other's guts. And you got a home team in Maryland looking for some respect, getting points at night against a Penn State team, James Franklin. They're going to get the calls. They always do. And will Maryland make a few enough mistakes to knock off the Nittany Lions outright, or do they cover with the 6.5? 52% of the public on Penn State in this one. The line opened at 6. It's at 6.5. I love Maryland in this one. I just like betting against Penn State. I can't help myself. And Maryland's athletic enough. I think they've got the team speed, and at home, I think that this is a program that's not bad.
Yeah, Maryland's on the rise. I'm really kind of unsure about them. Obviously they literally destroyed Syracuse, 3 weeks ago. They're coming off coaching change. Maryland in the last 2 years had a death of a player. That was national news. But to your point, they have a lot of team speed. The athletes that are there are still, pretty good players. Penn State on the road, 6.5, night game. I like Maryland with you on this one. I think they're athletic enough. It's a close game, and Maryland in the.
We head to Colorado Springs where the Air Force, taking on San Jose State. Last week I had Air Force in the points against Boise.
I took Boise last week.
Steve was on the other side of that. We both had San Jose State against Arkansas. And outright winners as 20-point dogs at Arkansas. This line has come down a little bit as well. San Jose State now 19-point dogs. The line opened at 20.5. 58% of the public on the force in this one.
58.1% because I'm with the force on this one.
May the force be with you. Steve feels the force is with him.
Force is with me. I think especially after losing to Boise State. That was a good game. I got to see Air Force up close and personal last week. I like their team this year. I think those cadets up there in Colorado Springs are going to be mad this week, and I think they're going to stick it to San Jose State.
Yeah, I like Sparty in this one, these Spartans, and I took them last week against Arkansas as a 20-point dog, and I like them again here, getting 19 points. San Jose State is a program that just doesn't get a lot of respect and a lot of recognition, so you're always going to get value on them. And with 42% of the public on the Spartans, the line has dropped 1.5. That means the big money here is on San Jose State. It's not gigantic money, like huge inverse line movement, but it's good enough inverse line movement for me. It doesn't take much to talk me into an underdog, so I'll take the Spartans here. And my big number. I love a good dog, and I really think that this is going to be a very, very doggy week because I really think the Packers slaughter the Eagles tonight, and the books are going to take a beating, and they're going to be on the warpath the rest of the weekend. And the way the books hit the public are with the dogs, and in the games like this, in the games like Duke, 36% of the public on Duke. It's like these are the ones. It's like you're not necessarily on the house side when you're taking inverse line movement, but let's just say they have the same interest that you do in this one. Move to Cal, where the Golden Bears taking on Arizona State. Inverse line movement on this one, as well as Cal opened as a 5.5-point favorite. 56% of the public on the Bears, 4-0. And Arizona State, Herm Edwards' team, 3-1 coming into this one. I was against Herm last week with Colorado. Came out on the right side. Meanwhile, Arizona State, like I said, 44% of the public, yet the line has dropped a full point.
I'm all in on the Cal Bears. The game is at Berkeley. Arizona State has this freshman quarterback, and I think there's a couple quarterbacks, but a highly touted freshman. He's done okay. Arizona, I'm not sold on Herm Edwards as a college coach. They are 3-1, but they're going to California on the road. I like California Golden Bears by 5.5 points in this one at home. They're playing good football. They went to Old Miss last week, and then a Cal team going down to the south and coming out on top. I like the Golden Bears here.
Yeah, I'll tell you that this is our fifth game of this show that we've covered, and this is my fifth underdog that I'm taking. I just love the dogs this week. I think tonight, the Packers win, and the books are going to get hit on that game, and I believe it. I believe maybe Navy, they're going to get hit as well because 67% of the public on the midshipmen. But I think that in a lot of these other games, this is where they're going to make it up, and Saturday could be an outright bloodbath. We'll get into those games for the public. And this is another one. Arizona State plus 4.5. This is a 3-point game either way. I don't see the 4.5 here. I think that's what how the Sharps push this line down with just 44% of the action on it, is that this is a 3-point game. This is an Arizona State team that played a tough defense in East Lansing against Michigan State, and it was a war. I mean, this was not like a Pac-12, shootout 65-63. This was 10-7 at East Lansing against a Mark D'Antonio defense. And, if you can do it against a Mark D'Antonio defense in East Lansing, you can sure as hell do it in Berkeley. I'm going to take the Arizona State Sun Devils here, plus the points. I'm going to take my fifth dog. Everyone knows I love my dogs. Of course, this is Mitch from Pick Dogs here with Steve Monahan doing our college football preview, part 1 of 2. We're doing through about the 4 o'clock games today, and then tomorrow we'll clean it up on Aloha Friday. And, of course, I'll be wearing my Aloha shirt for our 11 a.m. Eastern Time show like I do every Friday on Aloha Friday. And we got our website launching next week, Pick Dogs. Really, really excited about it. Been working my ass off on it. So I know it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it will be shortly. And we just want to get it out there, get you guys some good content. And you guys know, when I do it bigger and better than everybody else. Whatever I'm doing today is what everybody else is doing 2-3 years from now. And by the time they're doing what we're doing, we're already doing the next thing. Just like the live shows here with Steve Monahan. They don't even know who the hell he is. But meanwhile, picking winners left and right.
I don't even know who I am.
Oh, no. Our people, the doghouse knows who Steve Monahan is. That's for sure. He went 14-2 his first NFL Sunday with us. Anyways, Wisconsin Badgers taking on Northwestern. This line's gone from 21.5 with the Badgers laying all the way up to 24. I'll tell you, Northwestern, 36% of the public here, and generally for me, I love dogs, and you give me a reason to find 3 touchdowns and a field goal in a conference game, I'm usually all over it. But this Northwestern team is terrible. Normally, I think Northwestern's a gritty team. They kind of play to the level of their competition. They play up against the good teams. They play bad against the bad teams. Always kind of sloppily get it done, kind of like the Seattle Seahawks. But I'll tell you what, they just don't have it this year. I think they're in big trouble at Camp Randall. I know it's a big letdown spot for Wisconsin after last week's game against Michigan, but I've seen this before where they come out sluggish in the first half, and then the second half they start running downhill, and it's all over in Madison. I was at a game. It was Wisconsin against Northwestern. That's exactly how it went, and I see this one going the same way. I hate laying 24 points. I know you guys never hear me say this, but, well, it's not never. It's rare that you hear me say, I'm laying 24 with Wisconsin. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that because I am taking the Northwestern Wildcats. To your point, Wisconsin actually kicked the crap we talked about out of Michigan at Camp Randall. They're home again. Jonathan Taylor on Wisconsin running up and down the football field. Heisman contender. He's got to be a top 3 contender. You got the beef of Wisconsin. I've always been a Fitzgerald fan of Northwestern. I think he gets his team up. To your point, I don't think they're as talented as Northwestern teams have been lately. However, 24.5 points. I see Wisconsin not really, steamrolling them. So I'll take the 24.5 points with Northwestern here.
We got a question here. They want to know my email. It's mitch@pickdogs.com. Very, very easy. Mitch, like my name. Pickdogs, like the site, like this. Whatever. That's my email. mitch@pickdogs.com. Very, very easy. Any questions, just hit me up on Facebook. Let's see. Keep rolling right along. And we go to Toledo, where the Rockets are taking on BYU. Major inverse line movement in this game, as 68% of the public is on the Cougars, yet the line is dropped from 3 to 1.5. That means there's some big money on the MAC here. Big MAC attack. The Toledo Rockets 2-1. BYU, it's been win one, lose one, win one, lose one. The 2 losses, pretty tough. At home against Utah, and then win against Tennessee. Win against USC.
USC. BYU has a good win against USC.
Lost to Washington. Meanwhile, Toledo, win against Colorado State, win against Murray State. 14-point loss at UK. I don't know, tough one. Who do you think, Steve?
I'm all in on BYU. To your point, BYU's played a tough schedule. Washington, USC, Utah, that type of thing. Toledo, hey, they're a nice team out of the MAC. 2-1, like you said. I like the points here. I like BYU. I think they got a good team this year, and I think they should take care of business. I'm going with the Cougars.
Yeah, everyone knows that when it comes to the big games, when it comes to the night games, when it comes to the bowl games, that's why, 3 million people plus a month tune in for my picks, either on my websites or on these videos. And usually, actually, if you combine them, even more than that. And I've built my reputation 12 years of these types of games. So where I usually get, people usually catch on if they don't know me already, is things like the Boise, Idaho Potato Bowl and games like that, because those are the hardest games to pick, because those are the teams that you just wouldn't think would ever even play each other. And this reminds me of a Potato Bowl type game. You have BYU up against a small MAC team, and all of a sudden you got 400-pound linemen against 200-pound linemen, and it just doesn't work. I know that Toledo generally has really good skill players, Kareem Hunt type guys, generally, and a couple, they have a few NFL caliber players every single year. They always have, ever since Chester Taylor, right? Remember Chester Taylor was at Toledo? And they've had tons. But BYU is just too big, too physical. And I tell you, after getting beat up by Washington at home last week, they're going to be crabby. I don't know. I would not want to be on the other side of that.
Plus the average age of the roster is what, 28.9?
Yeah, exactly. Go to Miami of Ohio, and in this one, Miami of Ohio taking on Buffalo. The Redhawks, of course, took one on the chin against.
Oh, did they?
Took it on the chin against
The Buckeyes.
the Buckeyes, 76-5 after leading 5-0. It's the last time they'll ever do that in Columbus. And meanwhile, Buffalo, after losing to Liberty by 18 points, losing to Penn State by 32 points, come out and beat Temple as 14-point dogs. After
Temple's a good team. That's a good win for Buffalo.
After Temple beat Maryland the week before. So this is just, which Buffalo team shows up? Is it the one that beat Temple or the one that lost to Liberty 35-17 when they were one of my best bets, laying 6 points on the road with Hugh Freeze in the dentist chair in the press box? I just have no idea in this one. The Redhawks at home, their last two losses, tough teams. Cincinnati and Ohio State, of course, their one win. Tennessee Tech, and they lost at Iowa. So the three losses, I know they're 1-3, but at Iowa, at Cincinnati, at Ohio State, three bowl teams for sure. And Buffalo's losses, Penn State, a bowl team, at Liberty, second year in Division I, right? So, but still, Liberty was kind of an elite, lower division school, but I mean, I took Buffalo as one of my best bets, and which when I take them as one of my best bets, and they not only don't cover the spread, they lose by 18 points. Well, I pretty much hate their guts for quite some time, and I don't hold a grudge except when I'm holding a grudge. I'm going to hold one against Buffalo here. I'm going to take Miami of Ohio. Steve, what are you thinking?
I like the fact that Buffalo's played a hard schedule. I know you're not taking Buffalo stock. You got the grudge you just mentioned. I'm going to take Buffalo here. Listen, like I said earlier, Temple is a good team, man. All right? And which one is going to show up? They laid an egg, lost by 18 the week before, so they show up for work this week. Buffalo.
Okay, those of you that are new to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. Be sure to hit the like button. It takes you about a half a second. Helps us an absolute ton. I have the website launching next week. Everything up until that point is going to be 100% free. Of course, once I have the website, I'll have premium picks. So, on those games, if I have a premium pick on the side, I'll give a pick on the total. If I have a pick on the total, premium pick, I'll just give a pick on the side and say my premium pick's on the total and, whatever. We always have a way of still giving out a free pick for every game, on these shows. And, I've been doing it for a very long time. No one ever seems to complain except for the people that complain. So we'll just keep it rolling. But anyways, be sure to subscribe to our channel and be on the lookout for our new website. Go to Norman, Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts and the Sooners 3-0 on the team versus Texas Tech. Sooners ranked number 4 in the country, trying to play a little bit of defense this year, as every time they've made it to the playoff, they just get absolutely crushed because they can't tackle anybody. Okay. Meanwhile, speaking of a team that hasn't been able to tackle anybody, Texas Tech, that loss at Arizona, that left a mark on me. It was another one of my best bets of the day. I took Texas Tech to go into Arizona and beat Kevin Sumlin's team. Didn't happen. It's their one loss of the season. The Red Raiders 2-1 on the season, while Oklahoma 27-point favorites here. Texas Tech has had a week off to let that Arizona game seep in a little bit. Meanwhile, Oklahoma had last week off after beating UCLA at UCLA. The line was 22.5. I predicted they would win by 100. I was a little light on that, but I'm telling you, they could have won by 100 if they really wanted to. So it was 48-14. It wasn't as close as the score. But here we go. The Oklahoma Sooners, they got the win over Houston. They beat South Dakota. And, I think they still look back to that game from last year, 45-34 against the Crimson Tide, and it's like they realize that they're going to have to stop some teams from scoring if they're going to want to win against the best teams.
Yeah. I like Oklahoma laying 27 here. I think the Jalen Hurts transfer in Oklahoma, not missing a beat, Lincoln Riley. The offense is never the problem with Oklahoma. To your point, defense, they had a whole year to fill in the gaps there. They're the 4th-ranked team in the country. Texas Tech doesn't inspire me whatsoever. I like Oklahoma early in the season doing what Oklahoma does. Until they get to the Red River shootout with Texas, then we'll really see what they're made of. But I think Oklahoma rolls. I think they cover 27 points here. It's a lot of points, but Oklahoma's offense is very prolific.
Until Oklahoma can show me that they have the defense for real, that they really have a defense, not the defense that gave up 31 points. They gave up 31 points against Houston. I'll tell you what, if Texas Tech can put 31 on the board, it's going to be very hard for them to cover the 27. And I just think that 27 is a ton here. The total in this game is 71, down from 73.5. So the books are looking for a shootout, and the public is looking for a shootout. 65% of the public on the Sooners in this one. The line going from 24.5 to 27. So the sharps, the public, everybody, we call it the world, is on the Sooners. And everyone knows if the world's on one side, everyone knows where I am. Other side. I love taking points. I love dogs. I've only taken 2 favorites the entire show, and I'm not going to change it.
So you got with the Red Raiders of Texas Tech?
I'm taking Texas Tech. We go to Nashville. Vandy taking on Northern Illinois. Vandy's been on the wrong end of some pretty tough games here. 0-3 to start the season. Vandy losers against LSU 66-38. They played at Purdue 42-24. Opened the season against Georgia. You want to talk about a team that is scheduled, man. They played two top-tier SEC teams, 2 teams ranked in the top 10. Then a road game at Purdue. Meanwhile, Northern Illinois, losers at Nebraska 44-8, losers at Utah. So this is their 3rd road game in a row. And now against an SEC team, certainly not Nebraska or Utah. They beat Illinois State in their opener. That's their one. Vandy laying 6.5 at home. I like Vandy here. You got the SEC versus the MAC angle here. Vandy, they're going to be around a 5 to 6 win team. They always are. It's either it comes down where they need to beat Tennessee. Will they beat Tennessee and get in a bowl game? Will they not beat Tennessee on that last game of the season, that Thanksgiving weekend game? I think they beat Tennessee anyway again, and I think that they win this game too. I like Vandy. I'm going to lay a 6.5.
Yep, I agree with basically all your points, especially that Northern Illinois is on the road for the 3rd week in a row. Vandy being an SEC team, great athletes, very smart athletes, great school, Vandy, but I like them taking care of business based on the schedule they played before.
Speaking about getting the business, Michigan hosting Rutgers at the Big House, 27 and a half point favorites.
Bring this one up. This is my best bet of the day, folks. I'm telling you right now. The Michigan Wolverines are going to lay the hammer on Rutgers. I'm telling you, 27 and a half. This is a no-brainer. Michigan, I know, listen, I'm not a Harbaugh fan. They've been playing not Michigan football, but I'm in North Jersey. I follow Rutgers intently. Rutgers is a disaster. Probably going to make a coaching change. I don't know if it'll happen before the year is out, but you can rest assured the Chris Ash era will end most likely by the end of the year. Michigan obviously being embarrassed, almost losing to Army, getting absolutely smoked by Wisconsin. They're going to be awfully mad, and they're going to take it out at Rutgers in the Big House. So I am all in on 27.5 Michigan covering on this.
Yeah, I have it as one of my best bets too. Jim Harbaugh loves to beat up against the weak teams, celebrate and act like he's done something. And this is the perfect opportunity. This is the perfect opportunity for him to do that. I think Jim Harbaugh. This is how this game plays out, right? He's up by 50 or whatever. He's got the starters in, and he's yelling at them like the asshole that he is. And that's what we're going to see in this game. I can certainly see that happening, and I can see him yelling at the officials up by 50 in this game. With his starters in
for a late field goal to go up by 62 points.
No. He'll be throwing deep in the 4th quarter. With the starters in is what he's going to be doing. We go to Iowa. Iowa taking on Middle Tennessee, not the same Middle Tennessee that we're used to seeing. Iowa hasn't played in a while. They've had the week off since that 1-point war against Iowa State. The push heard around the world. We all pushed on that one. I know that I loved Iowa in that game, and man, it was like, I don't know how we ended up pushing, but it was a push. This was the one where we had the argument in the Facebook group. This is why if it's 1 point, I always just take the money line and lay the extra juice. Yeah, I know. I don't know what I was thinking. I would have laid the minus 120, even though I hate extra juice, right? Everyone knows that. Iowa laying 24 against Middle Tennessee. This Iowa team is a little different than some of the Iowa teams that we've seen in the past. Last year's Iowa team with the 2 tight ends, that was, pretty phenomenal to have that kind of tight end talent on one roster, was a little different than this team. That Iowa team kind of mucked around a lot in the first half, and then in the second half dominated teams. Meanwhile, I think that this Iowa team, they seem to start fast and finish faster. And I think this is one of the better teams that Ferentz has had there in quite some time. I'm going to take Iowa here and lay 24 points against Middle Tennessee, a team that in not just in college football but in college basketball has always been very good to us. So it's with the heavy heart, I'll go with 75% of the public here on the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Well, excuse me. I like Middle Tennessee here. Not to win, obviously not to win, but Iowa. To your point, I think they are a good Iowa team. I like Nate Stanley, the quarterback on Iowa. Big Kirk Ferentz fans. God, he's been 25 years at least the head coach in Iowa. It's 23 points. I'll take Middle Tennessee. Like you said, they can show up. So I'm going to go with a hunch here and take a dog here.
Middle Tennessee, 19-point losers at Michigan, 23-point losers at home against Duke. What Middle Tennessee State team shows up? The one that loses by 19 or the one that loses by 23? I think it's the one that loses by 50. We got Western Michigan versus Central Michigan. Everyone knows I love a good directional Michigan game. We got one here. No love lost between these two teams. The Broncos laying 17.5 against the Chippewas. And, of course, just as a directional Michigan game should be, split right down the middle with the public, 50-50, 17.5 points. The Bronx and the Chips. Steve, what are you thinking?
That's good. Isn't it's so spot on, I can't even tell you the 50-50 Michigan thing. I think 17.5 points. I'll go with the Chippewas here.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions on whether I do parlays and any of that stuff. One of the parlays, and I see crazy parlays in the Facebook group that people post their tickets of 10-team parlays and stuff like this. One of my favorite parlays to do, and obviously it wouldn't work this week with Central playing Western, but I love to do a Michigan parlay. Michigan, Michigan State, Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Western Michigan. It's, you just parlay those 5. You call it a Michigan parlay. And it makes sense. It just makes sense. So in this one, though, I have no idea, and I'll tell you what, I'm not even gonna go down that road because New Mexico State last week in that 53-55 game, who the hell can even call these things? Central and Western. We're gonna go ahead for the Broncos. Oh, that was tails. Heads for the Broncos.
Tails for
the Chips. And the Chippewas.
All right, we're both in on Chippewas.
Well, the penny is on the Chips.
The penny is, but you flipped the penny.
Not a bad. The penny is not being on the same side of the penny as the doghouse will tell you, as the residents of the doghouse will tell you. Not a bad place to be. The penny is about 16-4 or something. All right, we go to Arkansas, where the Razorbacks, last week we both took San Jose State against the Razorbacks. They outrighted them as 21-point dogs. This week, it's actually not in Arkansas. I stand correct. I got ahead of myself. This one's at, I believe, at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, AT&T.
Yeah, I think it's a
Cowboys. So it's Arkansas against Texas A&M. Generally, on paper, Texas A&M always looks to have a big edge on Arkansas, but this is one of those games that Arkansas always seems to play up for. Obviously, the Aggies coming off of that tough loss against Auburn, which, we all had them on the money line at plus 195, so it was good for all of us. But, Joe Kavanaugh saying fade the Hogs all year. We've been fading the Hogs for a long time, long before Brett Bielema was fired on the sideline. So we actually on my live show we Googled Brett Bielema because at the public university at the public universities, the coaches' contracts are public information, right? Because it's a public school. We Googled Brett Bielema's contract and looked at his salary plus bonuses and went through them line by line. And let's just say some of those incentive bonuses he never really collected on, but he still, I think he was like $8-9 million a year that he was collecting from our side.
He had a good deal.
He might still be collecting. He might have a Bonilla type deal going on there.
No doubt.
Because remember, he left Wisconsin to take that job. So it was it ain't pretty there. But anyways,
so Kavanaugh, our listener, is saying
fade the Hogs all year. What are you saying?
I think he's taking the Aggies. Is that what he's saying?
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, 40-point massacre, Joe Kavanaugh. I don't know about that, but that's a lot of points. I will say I like Texas A&M in this one. Arkansas just hasn't been Arkansas. When Brett Bielema, who was, like you mentioned, was a really good coach at Wisconsin, man. Real good coach. He couldn't turn Arkansas around. They haven't been relevant in quite a while. 23.5 points. I'm going to go with the Aggies here. I think Jimbo Fisher's got the Aggies starting to play well. They've had a tough road early on playing Clemson. You know, they lost by 14 at Clemson. That's no joke. They didn't play the best they could. They got super talent. I'm going to go with Texas A&M here.
Earlier in the week, I took Texas A&M, and I just thought that, they're the better team and they have more talent. But as we've gotten closer to the weekend, and, this could always change on Saturday too, this looks to be one of those games where the books just clean the public's clock out because it just seems so obvious that Texas A&M would clobber them. They just have so much more talent. Arkansas, I mean, they can't even beat San Jose State. Meanwhile, Texas A&M coming off games against Clemson and Auburn back-to-backers, that this should be the take out the frustration game. But it just seems that Arkansas usually plays up in this spot, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to take the Razorbacks in this one plus the points. It's probably
listener Joe is steadfast. Razorbacks are awful.
They are terrible. They're terrible. We know that. Anyways, we go to TCU, El Paso, Texas, where the TCU Horned Frogs, Gary Patterson's team, trying to lick their wounds after I picked against them last week with the Ponies of SMU, and the Ponies came marching home. Meanwhile, the Hat in town, Les Miles, it's a rebuilding Kansas team, and has some speed players, has some good skill position guys. Obviously, no one works the living room like Les Miles. He's one of the better recruiters out there. He's not the best recruiter, but he's one of the better recruiters out there. And, that ESPN commercial, talking about, when he was recruiting the anchors on ESPN, I could see you sitting in that chair. I could see you sitting. It's like,
wears a hat better than Les Miles.
And I think Les Miles, he always makes it exciting, even if he doesn't win. And it was kind of like that way last week against West Virginia, where he was getting 4.5. He lost by 5. Of course, the big win of the season was on the road at Boston College, and that could be their signature win of the year. Losing to Coastal the week before, and beating Indiana State to sit at 2-2. Meanwhile, Gary Patterson's team was 7.5-point favorites against my Ponies last week, and they lost by 3, and the game wasn't even really that close. I think SMU led from start to finish. Meanwhile, they had the win over Purdue 34-13. They crushed them. Arkansas Pine Bluff, and of course the war last year in the bowl game against Cal 10-7, and this is basically the same Cal team, a lot of same players back from TCU. So I think that game is somewhat relevant here. Steve, what are you thinking here? This is a tough one.
I don't think it's so tough. I watched that TCU SMU game. You took the Ponies. I took TCU based on a Gary Patterson-led defensive juggernaut type of team. I was less than impressed with TCU, really was. Les Miles, I'm a big fan of, obviously LSU days. Has he turned the program around? No. You mentioned the big win at Boston College. I think the coaching of Miles and his staff, I like Kansas here. Well, I'll take Kansas on the points here.
I'm going to go on the other side again. I'm going to take TCU. I'm going to lay the wood in this one. I think that TCU rebounds, and Gary Patterson in general, It goes the other way. It's like when people are expecting less from him, his teams do more. He always has a sick pass rush, and I think against Kansas and Les Miles, who seems to have trouble coaching up quarterbacks, I think he's going to have problems against the pass rush. I don't love this game. I'm not betting it.
I don't love it one way or the other. Don't get me wrong.
Speaking of games I don't love, we go to Charlotte, where the 49ers take on Florida Atlantic. Lane Kiffin, he's out of the airline hangar. He's back on the sidelines. Florida Atlantic +1 in this one on the road. 2-2 for both these teams. Florida Atlantic 2-0 on the road against the number. Meanwhile, 2-2. Meanwhile, Charlotte 2-2. Of course, Charlotte played Clemson last week, and I took them plus the points, and then they got that garbage touchdown at the end, which when I'm on the right side of it, I don't call it the garbage touchdown. I call it I had it all the way. But I was on the wrong side of it that time, and they were getting 41.5. They lost by 42. I hate that. But, when I'm on the other side of it, I never complain, so I can't complain about this one. Of course, they whooped
I wasn't disappointed with that garbage touchdown.
They whooped UMass. They played App State extremely tough, losing by 15 in a game they would get 23. And, of course, Gardner-Webb, 31.5-point favorites and only won by 21. And that's going to happen against Gardner-Webb. Pretty tough. Meanwhile, Florida Atlantic coming off of that war against Wagner, 42-7, 39.5-point favorites. Didn't get it done against the number. The win over Ball State. They're riding a 2-game winning streak after losing at Ohio State and at home against Central Florida in a regional battle. Steve, is Lane Kiffin getting it done here, or is Charlotte just kind of flying under the radar?
I think I'm going to request the penny on this one for both of us.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go to the penny on this one too. We're going to go heads with Charlotte, who I kind of like.
I am not a Lane Kiffin guy.
Yeah, well, the thing is about Lane Kiffin, it's like when you start to count him out and say that maybe Charlotte has a good chance here at home, that's when he kind of gets these swing passes going to the while I'm flipping the penny, I'll tell you when Lane Kiffin is really good, when really good offensive coach. When he has Reggie Bush is when he's really good. And Charlotte, heads with Charlotte, that's what it is. We both went to the penny here. But Lane Kiffin's a really good offensive coach when he has Reggie Bush on his team. And what he does is he gets
Reggie Bush. Reggie for 13 years now,
he gets Reggie Bush into space where he has about a 4 or 5 yard open area around him. He gets the ball to Reggie Bush, 2-yard pass, 3-yard pass, whatever it takes, pitch, it doesn't matter. With Reggie Bush with 2, 3, 4 yards around him, and then he lets him create in space. And he looks like a genius. And I'll tell you, it's not a bad strategy if you got it. If you have Reggie Bush, it's a really good thing to have. I mean, Reggie Bush was so good, Matt Leinart won a Heisman Trophy with this guy in his backfield. I mean, you want to talk about a running back that's going to pad your stats with 2-yard out patterns and, that can take him to the house. Reggie Bush is that guy. Of course, Florida Atlantic did it with Singletary last year, too. He's looked pretty good for Buffalo, for the Buffalo Bills. So we know that Lane Kiffin can recruit. We know that Lane Kiffin, it's not just, all right, he's better with Reggie Bush. But if he has a superstar running back like Singletary as well, he can still get it done against this type of competition, not against Oklahomas of the world, but against this type of competition.
But he doesn't have Reggie Bush and Devin Singletary. So.
No, he doesn't have either of those guys. But I'll tell you what, no one looks better with Reggie Bush than Lane Kiffin. He's milked that for all it's worth. Speaking of Reggie Bush, the USC Trojans, 3-1 on the season, just that loss to BYU, go to Washington. Who coming off a big stomping of BYU, the common opponent. Of course, Washington, the one loss on the season was Cal, and that was at home. Washington losing twice at home in one season, very, very rare. 10-point favorites here against the Trojans team that, who in the hell knew they had this many quarterbacks? I mean, they're just, it's like you want to talk about next man up, and it's not just like,
they all been next man up. They all been playing well, actually, when they step in.
Oh, they have been.
Matt Fink is the latest in the lineup.
Fink was slated to transfer before the season. Didn't transfer. Got in there. Man, he can play.
Yeah, he can. However, they're going to Washington. Washington's home. Like you said, BYU is their one common opponent right now. I don't know if Matt Fink does it again. Washington is playing well. I know you don't like Chris Peterson for some reason,
No, I
but I
love
think.
Chris Peterson. He's my
Oh,
guy.
I thought you didn't like him. I'm
Oh
big,
no, he's
big.
my guy.
Yeah, good. A big fan of him. So I'm going to take, even though it's 10.5 here, I like that Washington, I think, is trending up, and USC being on the road. I'll take the Huskies in the laying.
Yeah, I like Washington to win the game, but I'm going to take USC with the points because of that aerial attack. And, I just think that, if you have a guy that can throw the football, you can usually keep it close. And even if Washington gets up by 14, 15 points late in the game, I love that.
He'll get a garbage touchdown.
Oh, yeah. Well, we call it the backdoor cover when the team is outside the number and then just scores the meaningless touchdown to cover the spread. It's the old leaving the back door wide open. I expect to see maybe the back door open in this one. USC's a lot better team than I thought they were. Speaking of teams that are pretty good, we got Boston College had that one loss to Kansas, but outside of that, they've been pretty good to us. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, pretty good team as well. They beat Utah State on opening night, and I think Utah State, one of the, a team that had they won that game against Wake, were probably off to the races and probably were going to have some kind of argument to be in a major bowl game this year. That's how good they are. 57% of the public on USC. Of course, strong running game, senior leadership at quarterback. There's nothing new at Boston College. Guys that can block, guys that are fundamentally sound at every position, and a coach that, it's tough to figure out what he's thinking half the time. Just a bunch of super kids there at Boston College.
Got a year left, man. I think they're going to make a change by the end of the year. I'm not impressed with Boston College. I went to the Rutgers Boston College game last week, guys. And, Boston College pulled away from Rutgers. It was a 30-16 final, but it was 17-13 most of the game in the third quarter. I wasn't overly impressed with the typical Boston College team. Wake Forest is playing good football. I'm going to go Wake Forest here.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Boston College in this one at home as a 6.5 point dog. I just love getting points with the home team. I know there's usually a good reason that you get points with the home team, and Wake is pretty good. I know that they can put points on the board. It's not your father's Wake Forest. I understand that, but Dave Clawson is a great coach. Great coach. I loved the hire a few years back when they got him. I figured it was going to take him a little while, but once he got there, they were going to be good. They are good, and I got to go with the Eagles.
Boston College's quarterback. I'm forgetting his name right now. I was less than impressed.
But they still covered.
They did. They did.
If you can play bad and still cover point spreads, you're okay in my book. We go to Purdue, Jeff Brom's team, -1 here against PJ Fleck's Minnesota Golden Gophers. Everyone knows I hate Fleck so much, and I always think Purdue is way overrated, but it's just tough to get over my Fleck hatred in this one. He's out of the Jim Tressel line of coaches, which, does it get any closer to the devil than that? I don't think so. Rowing the boat, whatever you want to call it. 36% of the public here on Minnesota. The line opened at 1. It's still at 1. Hasn't budged despite the world being on Purdue. Purdue 1-2 entering into this game. I think it's a must-win game for Purdue at home. I think they have to win this one, and I'm going to take Purdue to win it. Purdue has some pretty talented skill position players that have some serious speed that are NFL-type players, and I expect to see them come out in this one. Minnesota is one of those teams that takes advantage of other teams' mistakes better than anybody else has, but Fleck is no Jerry Kill, and he's not even close to what Jerry Kill was. Let's face it. And, all right, I admit it. All right, fine. I hate Fleck. I'm taking Purdue.
I'm going to go with Purdue at home. I think you said everything that needs to be said. I think the difference is that Purdue is at home. That's it.
So you won't be wearing your vest. Is that what you're saying?
For this I Fleck.
Can't stand him. Purdue, Michigan State -14.5 at East Lansing against an Indiana team. 3-1, both these teams. Of course, the one loss for Sparty was that controversial loss in a game where they were laying 15.5 points. So it wouldn't have mattered to us what happened in that one. But Spartans laying 14.5 against an Indiana team that generally quits on it if they're out of it. In the last 5-6 minutes of a game, you rarely have to worry about the backdoor cover if you're ahead comfortably against the Hoosiers. I'm not sure, but we're getting into that homecoming time of year, so I'm not sure if this is a homecoming type game. But 14.5 is a ton for Michigan State to be laying against anybody. But once again, it's a coach that I hate at Indiana, so I'm going to lay the 14.5 with D'Antonio. And maybe we get a defensive score. Maybe we get like some really good field position, and they're able to capitalize on it. I can't see this game being like a 20 to 25 point game, but I don't know. 14.5. I don't love the hook, and I rarely say to buy down the hook, but I might consider it. I probably won't be betting this one, but I still will root against Indiana because I don't like them.
Yeah, Indiana, I have zero faith in their football program. Ever since I've been born, I've had zero faith in their football program. Michigan State, after a tough couple years, unlike Michigan State, D'Antonio game, they're home. I can see a 17-point at least victory here. To your point, probably not 23-24. I think Michigan State covers at home, and I'll take them being that they're at home. But Indiana football, outside of a few players now and then, the Vaughn Dunbars of the year, that type of thing. Outside of that, they never impressed me whatsoever. So
those of you joining us late, this is Mitch from Pick Dogs here with Steve Monahan, a football analyst for PickDogs.com, our website coming out next week. And got to find a role for Steve besides these videos. We're going to figure something out. It started off as a test, and now he's kind of just, he hasn't left, so he's still here. So we got to do something before he eats us out of house and home. So anyways, we'll figure it out what Steve's role is going to be. We'll get him somewhere on the site, and as an analyst, maybe helping me out with some of the weekly videos that I do. So those of you watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Be sure to hit the thumbs up, hit that like button. If you're watching us on a phone and you can't find the like button, what you got to do is just hide the comments for a second, hit the like button, come back to the comments. So that is how you do it. But anyways, should take you about a half a second, cost you nothing, helps us a ton. We have the website launching next week. I expect help from everybody on that to get the word out there. And of course, I'll incentivize you guys to do it. We're going to have a premium area where you get my best bets. Maybe Steve will put his best bets in the premium area as well. We'll figure it out. Anyways, go to Tuscaloosa. Speaking of the devil, Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson tied 35.5 point favorites over Ole Miss in this one. 59% of the favorite on the Tide, of the public on the Tide, and the lines moved 1 point. The total in this one set at 61. Ole Miss 2-2 coming into this one after that loss to Cal. Meanwhile, Alabama 4-0. Haven't really been tested yet this season. I wouldn't call Duke, to open the season as stiff a test as they usually play in that opening game. Then they played New Mexico State, South Carolina at South Carolina in a game they did not cover the spread. The line was 25.5 in that one as well. And then at home last week against Southern Miss, where I even took Alabama laying 36.5 points. You go to Ole Miss. They lost to Memphis 15-10 to start the season. 14-point winners over Arkansas. Win over Southeast Louisiana State. Did not cover in that one. It's 32.5 point favorites. And then the outright loss to Cal is 3 point favorites. Steve, what are you thinking here?
I'm roll Tide roll. I like the point that they haven't been tested. However, Ole Miss, thanks. I think even though it's 37.5, I took the Crimson Tide last week as well. I think they'll just start up their engine against Ole Miss. Obviously, the meat of their schedule is going to be fast upon us, the LSUs and so on and so forth, and Auburns and so on and so forth. Tua, big fan of him. I don't know if you're as much of a Tua guy as I am, but I can just see that that's for down the road. But I think Bama's defense. I think Jerry Jeudy. They got all the horses, and they can lay 42 by halftime if they really put their mind to it.
One of the interesting things about this series to me is, outside of the last 2 years when Ole Miss has had on the field and off the field troubles, this has always been a competitive game. I mean, even some great Alabama teams have struggled against Ole Miss, and I think this is probably one of those games too where they interview Nick Saban at halftime and he's mad about something, and it's like we can play better than this or whatever. But 35.5 is a massive, massive number against an SEC team.
It is.
Ole Miss might not be the, they might not even be the Kelly, Chad Kelly Ole Miss teams. They're certainly not, some of the ones before that. But I don't know. I think that they're better than 35.5-point dog against Alabama. I'm going to take Ole Miss in this, and I'm going to be betting this game one way or the other. If I do, I'll be betting Ole Miss, that's for sure. So that's why I'll give it out on this show. Keep rolling right along. I think we have another interesting game here with a massive point spread as we go to North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where the Tar Heels take on the Clemson Tigers. And Mac Brown's Tar Heels took it on the chin from App State. Steve and I both gave out App State in that game. But that was a weird line, 2.5 points. And, of course, it was a typical trap game with App State on the schedule, Clemson up next, and UNC started the season with 2 nice wins, beating South Carolina, beating Miami. Have lost their last 2 since then. But, Clemson.
They got a freshman quarterback, too, to Sam Howell. Kid looks actually pretty good, but let's not discount. The kid's a freshman now going against the national champion. So
North Carolina is seriously banged up coming into this one. But I'm going to guess all these questionable players are going to play. And Clemson, Ross is probable. He's ridiculous. He's an NFL wide receiver. I think him and Jerry Jeudy are the 2 best wide receivers in college football. How do you get a guy like Jerry Jeudy in Tuscaloosa? I mean, how does that happen? Someone explain this to me. If someone can do this,
Nick can recruit with the best of them.
Other teams win national championships, right? Other teams put wide receivers in the pros. Places like USC, known for wide receivers, Miami, known for wide receivers, beaches, girls, bikinis. But you go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, I don't know, something smells a little funny to me. But anyways, back to this one, Chapel Hill, another great campus and a great place to go to school. Beautiful. Up against Clemson, another beautiful place to go to school. If I had it all to do over again, these and Wisconsin, of course, would be the top of the list.
What's wrong with Com Ave in Austin, Massachusetts?
I say it all the time. If I had it to do all over again, it would be Madison, Wisconsin would be my first, second, and third choice because I've been there and it's just unbelievable place to go to school. But Carolina, Clemson, I like Mac Brown's team here. I think this is the type of game where you have a motivational coach like Mac Brown. Clemson usually stumbles in at least one game a year. They did it with Deshaun Watson. They'll do it with Lawrence, and they did it, of course, with Kelly. I think that Kelly Bryant. I think that this is probably that game for them where they stumble and either they escape with a win or they lose outright. And I'm going to take the Tar Heels in this one at 26.5. I think this is 65% of the public here on Clemson. The line has moved 1 point with 65% of the bets on Clemson, but that's not a very big line movement with a spread this big with that much percentage of the bets on it. I think we might even be able to get Carolina better than this in the 27.5 range on game day if we wait it out. I like Carolina in this one in the points, and I'll tell you, I'll be putting a small money line wager on the Tar Heels as well.
I think Trevor Lawrence breaks out against the Tar Heels. He's kind of struggled after a sensational freshman year. Clemson, listen, they're ranked number 1 for a reason, defending national champs. I like your point, though, about their trap game. They've historically have done that the last couple of years. Mac Brown, big fan, always big fan of him. They got off to that 2-0 start kind of by luck. They had some fortunate circumstances go their way. They're banged up, like you said. I mentioned the fact North Carolina's got a freshman quarterback, Sam Howell, who I like, by the way. I think this kid is going to turn into something. I just think Clemson's got too much firepower, and I have no problem picking Clemson here, winning by 4 touchdowns.
All right, we go to UMass, plus 6.5 against the Akron Zips. I'm going to keep it quick. I'm going to go with the Zips and lay the 6.5. Someone's O's got to go. Both these teams 0-4. The Zips have gone absolutely zip. Neither of these teams have covered a game either. Both 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread. Yet 6.5 points. Akron's laying on the road. 69% of the bets going in that direction too. Generally, I don't like to go in the direction of all the bets, but I like going in the direction of UMass even less than that. I'm going to take the Zips.
Yep, Zips. Next.
Go to App State minus 15.5 against Coastal Carolina.
Carolina now on the scene as a football program. They won the baseball national championship. So it's got to be within 5 years. That's a destination a lot of kids I see are going to now, this school. But they've been playing some pretty good football that they're becoming relevant and in the discussion, like doing our show today and doing this with App State. You know, we're fans of App State. I like the fact that the points there. I'm going to go App State here. I like App State.
I think after App State, after the sexy win against North Carolina, that's when I always go against the team. It's like I like being ahead of the public, and I think we were last week with App State, even though I gave the pick, and then the line was creeping that way anyway. So I don't think we did anything that nobody else was doing. I think other people were there, but at least we were on the right side of it. This week, I think the public, after that type of thing, now it's time to go the other way, kind of like what we did with Colorado last week against Arizona State after, kind of go the other way. And I think that's what we do here with Coastal. 15.5 points is a team. They beat Kansas. They beat the Hat, and they've won some pretty good games too. I know App State's 4-0 or 3-0 going into this one, but I think that Coastal isn't going to win the game, but I think they cover in this game. And I think this is that same type of game that they played against Kansas, 12-7 type game. Because App State is a really good team. But the thing that I love about App State, and I've loved about them for the last 10 years, is that inside the 10-yard line is where they live. Their defense, you can move up and down the field on their defense, but try and score on them from inside the 10. Very, very difficult. And I think that's the type of game that this is going to be. 14-3, 14-6, that's this type of game, 12-6, right? So I think getting 15.5 with Coastal, that's where I'm going to be on this one. Coastal plus the 15.5, and Steve is on App State minus the big number. We go to Temple. Takes on Georgia Tech in this one. 2 first-year head coaches going at it. Temple 2-1 coming off of that loss last week. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech 1-2 on the season, 0-3 against the number.
The Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech are no longer the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech. Temple has been playing well. They always, they have this turnover at the head coaching position. We talked about Temple early. They lost. They got beat last week, right? I don't know if they come back on this one. Georgia Tech being an ACC team, I think they got bigger, faster, stronger athletes, even though their record's probably not indicative of it. So I'll go with the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech.
Okay, I'm going to go with Temple in this one, laying the 9.5. I just think that, Temple's a team that plays on emotion, and at home, I think they get that emotion going. It's just the way that they play. Georgia Tech.
A Temple football game home means there's 600 people in the stands?
Yeah, well, Georgia Tech was 27-point favorites last week against the Citadel. They lost by 3. I think if you can't beat the Citadel, you're not going to beat Temple on the road, and I don't even think you're going to come close to it. I'm going to take Temple minus the 9.5. We go to Baylor, plus 2.5 against Iowa State. Iowa State, Matt Campbell, one of my very, very favorite coaches in college football. Baylor, of course, a program that bottomed out, and I think they're back on the way up, scoring tons and tons of points this season. But last week it was Iowa State scoring the 72 against Louisiana Monroe. Steve had Iowa State now, and I had Louisiana Monroe. I've been on the wrong side of a beatdown like that. Remember, I took, who was it? Someone against Duke. Evansville against Duke in college basketball about 3 years ago. I think Duke just scored. I think it was 155-3, and so I've been on the wrong side of games like this before. It still always just counts as one. Meanwhile, Baylor beating Rice last week, but not covering the spread. Baylor undefeated coming into this one with wins over Stephen Austin, UTSA, and Rice. Nothing there on it. Meanwhile, Iowa State, the win over Northern Iowa. Then they played Iowa, then Louisiana Monroe. Now it's Baylor who can put up points. Kind of like the over in this one at 56, I'll tell you that much, for starters.
Sure. I like Iowa State here.
Steve's going to take Iowa State minus the 3.
I think Baylor is a bunch of thugs. I really do.
I think that you can only look at the program recently, and I know David Stanton had Baylor last week. He loved them, and they just did not come through with the high-scoring offense that we're used to seeing from Baylor. I was on Rice last week in that game. Actually, I was not on Baylor. I was on Rice because I love saying I'm all over the Owls like white on rice. I say it all the time, and I was on that game. We go to South Bend, Indiana, where the Notre Dame Fighting Irish licking their wounds after that trip to Georgia, where they represented themselves well, knocked themselves out of the playoff race for sure. I don't see them making the playoff after that loss at Georgia.
If they run the table, they have a shot, depending
very
on things.
Little shot. This looks to be their toughest. The problem that they have is this looks to be their toughest game left on the schedule.
Oh, they got to win this.
They got to win this game. But the line in this one, 11.5 points. It's gone from 11 to 11.5. Everyone knows that Notre Dame lines notoriously tight. Notoriously, the games the books always seem to be very dialed in on these lines because these are some of the most bet games on the board. It's 11.5 right now. At 11, man, we know that it would have landed right on the number. Does it go, higher or lower? And this is a tough game. Bronco Mendenhall and Virginia 4-0 coming into this one. They back down from nobody. Notre Dame moving those 2:30 home starts now are 3:30 up against everybody else, which I think is odd, that they did that. I don't know why. It must be a scheduling thing with NBC, but Notre Dame games were always at 2:30 Eastern time. Now they're at 3:30 Eastern time. So it puts this one up against that North Carolina-Clemson game, which will probably be on the big screen here at the Mitch House, as well as USC-Washington will also be on at that time. So that would be the top center. So this is going to be in the upper right-hand corner, this one.
My marquee TV is going to have the Fighting Irish and the Cavaliers of Virginia as the marquee game.
Yeah,
but mistake.
I love Virginia in this one in the points. I'm going to put a small bet on them on the money line just for the hell of it.
Yeah, people know I'm a Notre Dame fan here. I actually just read an article about the Virginia program, what Mendenhall has done there. He's really you would think Virginia football would be more advanced than what it was when he took over, but he has broken it down. This is year 3 for him, I'm going to say, Mendenhall at least. And he's really instilled discipline.
Third year.
Yeah, it's reflected in a 4-0 start. They don't back down from nobody.
They're tough.
They're tough. 12.5 points. I'll take Virginia. I like this to be a field goal game coming down to the wire. One of those type of games.
I think Virginia has what it takes to beat them. I think they're not getting.
I think they could outright beat them too. But my only point on Notre Dame was if they do run the table, they are still in discussion. I don't think they're going to make the playoff, but don't put them out not making without the Notre Dame.
They're done from the playoffs.
Listen, I would say they're 90% done, but they're still.
Who are you going to take them over? A one-loss Auburn team or a one-loss LSU team? A one-loss Alabama? Are you going to take them over any of those?
Dallas Cowboy
a one-loss.
It's nice to have Notre Dame back.
Georgia plays Alabama, in the SEC championship game, or Florida plays Alabama with they go in unbeaten. You're going to put the loser of that game, Notre Dame, ahead of them, because. In order for Florida to get there, they would have had to have beaten Georgia to get there. So I don't see Notre Dame making it, and I could see 2 SEC teams. I could even still see one of the Pac-12 teams like Oregon still squeezing in because their one loss was to Auburn. No shame in that. It's like, I don't know. I think it's going to be really, really, really tough for Notre Dame to get in because games like Bowling Green next week just don't help you. But anyways, we go to, with plenty of time for discussion because, people act like, 4 teams are going to run the table this season or something, even though one rarely does, Go to South Florida. Charlie Strong, South Florida Bulls. Charlie Strong still has a job. He's at South Florida. Up against SMU, off to the 4-0 start for the Ponies. It's been a while since we've seen an SMU team this good. They are 4-0 straight up. 4-0 against
since the death penalty they got.
Yeah, and meanwhile, June Jones had them back in business. But South Florida, 1-2 on the season. the one win last week against South Carolina State, 55-16. They're 24.5-point favorites. They lost to Georgia Tech 14-10, and they opened the season at home against Wisconsin in a game. A lot of people had South Florida in that game. 10-point dogs. They got steamrolled 49-0 by Wisconsin at home. The South Florida show up here.
I mean, that's a problem. Charlie Strong is a defensive-minded coach, and they're giving up a lot of points. Granted, that Georgia Tech score was a low-scoring affair, but when they're giving up 49 and 40 here, that to me is not a good sign. SMU 4-0. I'll take the ponies in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other side. I'm gonna take South Florida in this one against SMU, just because it's like my same strategy that I generally follow in games that I don't know, that I'm not sure. I generally like to take the points, especially with a home team, and especially against a team that is going from under the radar to over the radar, right? So it's not like people don't know who SMU is anymore. But anyways, we're going to cut the show off there. That's the only 4 o'clock Eastern time start. Tomorrow we'll be back, and we're going to cover the games that start at – the next game would be 6 o'clock game. It's going to be Arkansas State-Troy. So I know you're going to be tossing and turning, on that Arkansas State-Troy game. But, we got Arkansas State-Troy. We got Liberty-New Mexico. So the fun doesn't end there. And, of course, that 43-point spread in the UCF-UConn game, which is going to leave you on the edge of your seat. Georgia Southern, ULL, Old Dominion, ECU. We got it all covered for you. Rice, La Tech. The fun never ends. We'll be back with all those games tomorrow. But today, in the first game, Steve and I both have Navy tonight. We both took Duke tomorrow, Maryland tomorrow. Steve's on the Force, minus 19. I took San Jose State plus the 19. And I took Arizona State plus the 4.5. Steve's got Cal minus the 4.5. I took on Saturday's action, early action, took Wisconsin minus 24. Steve's on Northwestern plus 24. We're both on BYU minus 1.5 against Toledo. I don't know. It seems weird that the line is only 1.5, but like I said, it kind of reminds me of a Potato Bowl. It has Potato Bowl written all over it. We got Miami of Ohio. I took them plus the 3 points. Steve took Buffalo minus 3. That's a weird game. We got Texas Tech. I took Texas Tech plus the 27 at Norman. Steve took the Sooners. He thinks Jalen Hurts continues to roll that team. I don't understand. The guy couldn't throw the ball downfield when he's with Alabama. Now all of a sudden he's a Heisman candidate. I'm not buying it.
I am.
We both took Vandy minus 6.5 to get off the snide. Michigan, both of us love these as a best bet for the week. I'll have this on the board for me on Saturday as one of my best bets. Especially, I don't even care if it goes to 28.5. I'm still going to take Michigan. They're going to crush Rutgers on Saturday. And Jim Harbaugh, like I said, will have the starters in, throwing deep, yelling at officials, up by 40 in the fourth quarter. Iowa minus 24 for me. Steve took Middle Tennessee in that one. I flipped the coin on the Central Michigan, Western Michigan game. I'm not ashamed of it. Steve took Central Michigan in this one. So did the Lucky Penny. Never tough being on the same side of the penny, but I just couldn't pick side. 50-50 the public is on that game. I took Arkansas plus 23 against Texas A&M. First time I've taken Arkansas all season, and probably in a couple of years. I just think this is the type of game that they play a little bit better than what we've seen them. They always have a rise to the occasion game. I think this might be it. Steve says no way. He's taking Texas A&M. I took the Horned Frogs and Gary Patterson coming off that tough game against the Ponies. I was on the Ponies last week, but I'm changing sides. I'm taking TCU minus 16. Steve's on the hat, the Kansas Jayhawks. Then we went to we flipped the penny on the Charlotte game against Florida Atlantic. Very, very tough game. We just flipped the penny for both of us. It came up Charlotte. We're getting the 1 point at home. We went to Washington Husky Stadium. Steve took the Huskies minus the 10 points. I took USC minus the 10. I think I can get 10.5 out of that one if I really hunt it and shop the line. Then we went to Boston College. Steve hated what he saw of Boston College last week in Piscataway, New Jersey against Rutgers. I kind of like Boston College, and I love a good home dog. Everyone knows that. I'm a sucker for a home dog. Plus 6.5, I'll take the Eagles. Steve took Wake Forest. I do like what Clawson's doing there, though. We both took Purdue minus 1 against PJ Fleck. No vest wearing over here. I took Purdue minus 1, so did Steve in that game. In the next game, I took Michigan State minus 14.5, and Steve agreed with me on that one against Indiana, another coach I don't like. We went to Steve likes Alabama minus 35.5 in an SEC game. I took Ole Miss plus 35.5. That's 5 touchdowns and change for those of you keeping score at home. I took North Carolina against Clemson, getting almost 4 touchdowns. Steve took Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers. I think, for me on offense, it's all about Etienne, and he just opens up the passing game for Lawrence. And Lawrence is a good quarterback.
That's better, brother.
Lawrence is a good quarterback. He makes the throws. He gets it to his receivers. He throws it high to the big guys. He does all the right things, but let's just say he has a little bit more time than he should because he's got a running back that runs about a 4.0 40. And I don't know. It's a nice luxury to have. I'll leave it at that. We'll judge Lawrence on his own merit, and I think he's, like I said, he hasn't done anything wrong. He's done everything right. But I'll just say, if you have a defense and it doesn't watch out for Etienne, it's a touchdown every time he touches the ball. If you don't key on him, right? So it's a nice luxury for a quarterback to have. Hey, someone's going to have it. Why not him, right? It can go either way. We both took Akron minus 6.5. Can't stand UMass. I took Coastal Carolina plus 15.5 against App State. Steve stayed with App State after winning with them last week. I had App State last week as well. I like Temple minus 9.5 at home against Georgia Tech. Temple's a team that plays on emotion, getting home in Philly with the emotion going. Georgia Tech lost to Citadel last week. I think Temple would crush Citadel if they beat them and they beat them and they beat them. Imagine what imagine what Temple would do to Citadel. It's like that type of thing. I'm going to take Temple. And we both took Virginia against Notre Dame, despite the public going the other way. Steve's going to go with the ponies, changing his horses after last week and losing against the ponies. Now he's on the ponies. I'm jumping off the horse. I'm getting on the bulls with South Florida. Charlie Strong. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Anyways, that's going to wrap up part 1 of our college football show. We'll be back tomorrow wrapping up the show. A lot less games tomorrow, but like I said, we got some real quality on the way with that barn burner Troy taking on Arkansas State, UConn, UCF. I mean, the fun doesn't end there. Western Kentucky, UAB, ULM, South Alabama, and maybe even Nebraska, Ohio State, Utah State, Colorado State, Florida State, NC State. A lot of states tomorrow. Anyways, we'll be back.
Before we sign off, I'd like to say hello to Cliff Olander, who sent in a nice text. Listen, I do a sports podcast with my brother Jim once a week right now called Sports with Mono and Mono. And you can find us on SoundCloud and you can find us on YouTube. And Cliff listened to the show, said a nice complimentary thing. Wanted to shout back out to Cliff. Thank you so much for listening. And I can't thank you enough.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up. And, of course, join me every day at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live show. Got a new website opening up next week. It's going to be pickdogs.com. I'll tell you more about it then. But thanks, everyone, for joining us. Have an awesome rest of your day. I'll see you guys at halftime tonight of the Packers game against the
Eagles. John Facenda.